And yeah, I'm really excited to try to just tease out, especially the parenting, the fatherhood implications of what you're describing. But I assume people listening to this are going to maybe start with kind of surprise, like, wait, that's like, do we even know anything about the causes? My experience was it seemed like within the Christian community, there was sort of like a bias of, well, if you have a same-sex attraction, you've done something wrong, you've chosen this. There was a lot of judgment around this. And in order to like kind of put a stop to that, there was kind of a born this way. There's got to be a gene. We're going to find a gene someday. We don't really know exactly what it is, but we know it has zero to do with choice. It's definitely not, it's likely not even related to nurture. And there seems like there's now theories around, kind of like a in utero kind of trying to explain, since they can't find a genetic link, they got to go as far back as possible. And maybe if you could place what you're describing, Dr. Nicolosi, alongside like the sort of the going theories, and kind of give us some context as to why there isn't a consensus around what is the root causes of same-sex attraction in males.
There are different theories, you're right, and there isn't a consensus, perhaps due to a socio-political bias, due to an ideological bias. The psychological community is an ideological monoculture in which you do not challenge the mainstream narratives on the topic of LGBT. Even if it's evidence-based, it's like you're considered a pariah. So I think that's a part of what we're seeing. But yes, look, there may be a genetic situation here. There may be a genetic predisposition, but a predisposition and a determinant are two different things.
Okay.
There are many things that are predispositions that we all have, but those are not things that make us do a certain behavior or feel a certain feeling, especially not something as complex as human sexuality. So there are several theories. One is it's genetic, although that theory has been dying down dramatically, because once you investigate that theory and you think about this, if there were a gene that instructed any organism to couple with members of the same sex versus opposite sex, that's a self-destruct gene. So it can't simply be a matter of genetics. And they think, well, maybe it's nature and nurture. Maybe there's a theory about the mothers, the having other older, if they have multiple boys, then maybe later on, as they have more boys, it affects the mother's hormones, and so it will change the boy's brain. That's called the maternal immune hypothesis. But I think the best information that we can find is, let me tell you what I suspect may be going on, and then I'll tell you what. I think there could certainly be a genetic predisposition to a certain degree. I think there could be something to the maternal immune hypothesis, which might be moving the needle 2 or 3%. I think these things are moving the needle 2 or 3%. But I think that the evidence for the environment is very strong. So let me just tell you this. So possibly the best way to tease out how much of this is genetic and how much isn't is to look at twin studies. Now, there's a big twin study in the 1990s that showed that if you have genetically identical twins, that if one of the twins, we're talking about males today, so I'm just going to talk about males. If one of the twins was gay identified, there was a 50% chance that the other genetic twin would be gay identified. And people said, see, this is evidence of a gene. Well, not so fast. So first of all, 50%, right off the bat, we know that already 50% is probably environmental. But then we have to go, oh, well, wait a second, these kids were raised in the same environment. So there's something to do with that. What we would have to do is look at genetically identical twins who were separated at birth in two different environments, literally from day one. And there's small studies, just a couple small studies, because that's very hard to find. And those studies seem to indicate that the concordance rate is somewhere between 5 and 10%, not 50%. It's somewhere roughly 5 to 10%.
Okay.
This would indicate to us that this is predominantly related to the environment.